Welcome back to the DiveWise podcast. And you'll see I'm out of the studio. I'm on travel right now, making the best of the scenery. Today, I wanted to talk about moments underwater that genuinely scared me. One in particular, but there are several. This topic has been on my mind because, frankly, I want to be transparent in some of my experiences, what I've learned from them, so that hopefully you can learn from them as well. And I may have talked about this in some of my videos, but one time I genuinely felt scared underwater was in Raja Ampat in Indonesia. I was a fairly new diver. This is my first live aboard. And I think at the time I had about 100 dives. It's quite some time ago, and everything on the dive started as normal. We weren't expecting what happened, but maybe about 30 to 40 minutes in on the dive, we hit some really hard current. But at the time, my mind frame was, no problem, I got this, I'm pretty fit. I ended up taking a photo, I think, of a beautiful mantis shrimp, taking some photos of it, and I got behind the group and I saw them pretty decently far ahead of me, so I tried to catch up, and I was kicking pretty hard against the current, right into it. Didn't take long until I started to feel a pang in my head, a kind of a little bit of a headache coming on really quick. This is the carbon dioxide building up in my system. At the time, I had no clue. My legs started to feel quite tired, quite burned out, and try as I might, I was having a hard time trying to catch up with my wife, which was ahead. To make things worse, in my mind, I realized that we're kind of at the end of the reef. I'm literally in a situation where I might get blown off the reef into the blue and away from the dive site. Now, I'm in just the right position to be hitting the brunt of this current. So fighting it was definitely the wrong move. Here I am now struggling to move forward, thinking that I'm going to blow off the reef, and I'm in a real situation. I didn't even have a dive torch at the time to communicate with anyone else. And this is before I started carrying DSMB always. Ultimately, I grabbed onto the bottom and I started to take some rest and I started to move forward. And then I started to realize, this is actually a lot easier than finning, trying to push against the current. So I started walking with my hands across the sand to get out of it. Fortunately, my wife turned back. She saw me. She came and she kind of comforted me at this time. The feeling I was starting to experience at this time can be nothing short of panic. I started to feel I didn't have control of the situation. I was losing control of my own self. I didn't have confidence in my abilities. And ultimately, that panic was starting to set in. I could feel it. I wasn't even thinking reasonably anymore. Fortunately, when my wife came, she put her hand on my hand. And I'll just vivid memory of this. But she kind of looked me in the eyes and I kind of snapped back to reality. I got this. I just need to stay here for a moment, calm down, let this killer headache that started, it's now a gigantic and killer headache. My legs are shot. I just need to calm down, rest. Now I have a way of moving forward, even if it's slow, crawling on this sand to get out of the current. And so that's kind of what we did together. We crawled out. It wasn't even that far, maybe like 5 to 10 meters away. We were able to get out of the current, and then no problem. There was like no current after like 5 meters, or it's about 15 feet. It's like gentle on the other side of the slope. So it was really just this one area that was getting that current, and that caused a kind of a panic attack. In reflection, now with a lot more experience diving in current and also just growing as a diver over the years, I can say that there was a lot of stuff that happened that I didn't need to experience that panic attack. But to some degree, I feel is destiny. It kind of had to happen for all the things that happen afterwards. And with that, I realized how panic kind of sets in. It really is kind of a symptom of feeling like you don't have control of a situation. So how could I have controlled that better? For one, having a DSMB would have been kind of like ease on the mind. Even if I was still having trouble with the current, I could always just let go. Of course, we have a lost diver situation, but I can pop the DSMB. Even if I get blown away from the dive site, boats will see me drifting away and they'll be able to pick me up. Worst situation is I kind of ruined a dive for everyone else, but we were like 30, 40 minutes into the dive, so it's not the worst situation possible. Also, how I handled the current was insufficient. I could have basically, instead of going straight into it with my whole mindset that, hey, I'm fit, I got this, no problem. That's not the way we got to be on diving. It should be, how can I handle this as easy and slowly as possible? And so I could have just did diagonal. And instead of finning, of course, I could have just crawled the whole time with my hands. That's using a lot less muscle, and it's much easier to pull myself in that situation where finning obviously wasn't effective against the current. And further, just having more experience with current and how to handle it and circumnavigate it would have been more of a confidence builder. And I've said this in other videos, but a lot of this coming down to is some skill. I needed to practice a lot more things. I needed to have a DSMB on myself. I needed to be in current more. And in the confidence wasn't there. And so both of these needed to rise higher for me to be able to do these conditions in a safer manner. And ultimately not have a panic attack. Now, this is the only time I've ever had a panic attack in diving, because I like to attribute this one incident was kind of an awakening for me. It wasn't a life-threatening awakening, fortunately, but it very well could have been. And so now I aspire to improve that bar and become a better diver so that I can avoid those situations down the road. And it's one of the big reasons that really kind of inspired me to start this channel and start communicating to other divers all the things that I've learned over the years. Because I've taken a lot of the same courses. I've had some great mentors, but not all of these things can be taught through certifications and learned upfront. Sometimes you do need to learn the skill from certification courses, maybe introduction, maybe there can always have a higher bar for the skills that you learn, and how, like, learning new ways to practice them. But those are all about skill building. And then, of course, you have to practice them a lot to build your experience. And that experience turns into wisdom. And that wisdom is your backbone of your confidence. Of course, there's a thing is overconfidence, which is like the old confidence man or woman, con man, woman, the confidence person. You don't want to get there. We want our confidence to be backed by experience, skill, and wisdom. So let's all aspire to share our own stories, help other divers, and enjoy our dives as safely as possible. The more you know, the more you love and protect the ocean. Until next time.